Yo, what is good, everybody? It is your boy Golden Falls, Golden What If, whatever you want to call me, and I'm back. This is What If Deku Had a Pokemon Quirk Part 4, and I actually wanted to give a little thing. I want to say I appreciate all y'all's support. Sorry I missed the day of uploading. I kind of talked about how I wanted to be daily. I do miss a day every so often, depending on circumstances. My goal for the rest of this month is to straight up be daily. I just need to be more efficient with my time. I think a lot of you know how it is. Even in school, if you're in school or weren't in school / do a job or whatever, it gets kind of like, oh, I want to take this break. I get distracted on this. I just can't do that. And I can get content to y'all pretty quickly. I mean, I've proven that before, and I do enjoy what I'm doing. So I need to get y'all content. So I promise you that I'm going to try my best rest of the month. Daily content. For anything else outside this channel, I'm not going to talk too much on that, but I will probably have a chat about it pretty soon. With that said, I hope y'all enjoy, as always, and let's get into part 4. Let's get it. Izuku Midoriya is taking on Shoto Todoroki and Katsuki Bakugo. This is for the final. Aizawa was telling him that he technically already has passed, but he tells him that he could always revoke on that if he decides to do so, but he recommends he tries his best. Izuku is confused by this and asks if he wants him to go full power, like full strength, and, well, of course Aizawa waves him off, saying that he can go full strength if he wants. He probably recommends to pick and choose exactly what form he wants to be in. I mean, he assumes he wants to be in his Mega Lucario form, but, I mean, if he wants to try out his other form, he could do that as well. Izuku would kind of take this oddly, but would decide to stick with the Lucario form and would Mega Evolve as he waits within his city. As he Mega Evolves, though, an interface would come up like right in front of his vision through a lens that is on top of his head. He would see that it would say 100%, and then it would slowly go down to 10%. And Izuku would be confused. Why did it just go down to 10%? And in his eardrum, he could hear Aizawa talking. By the way, kid, you're a little too strong to take them on normally, so we toned you down just a little bit. Izuku would be confused, but then he would feel tons and tons of weight on his body, as if the weight just got amplified on the armor. Izuku would then tell Aizawa that he is a real jerk for this one. Aizawa says that his strength should be about 10% of what it normally is, but even so, that doesn't necessarily matter. The weight should bear down on him enough that he has to exert maximum effort, and slowly throughout the fight, the number will start heading back up to its normal 100%. If Izuku lasts that long, and he doesn't get beat, then he'll obviously win. He might even win at 50%, maybe 40%, but it's going to be a struggle for now. The gates would swing open and the sirens would blare, and Izuku would immediately try to run toward Bakugo and Todoroki. Izuku is thinking to himself that he needs to exert maximum effort to even fight right now, and as Bakugo and Todoroki swarm him and Todoroki shoots a giant blast of ice, Izuku would shatter the ice with one punch and utilize the armor to his advantage. He thinks that, yeah, he might not be able to throw punches at full strength, but with utilization of the armor, his attacks are a lot more sharp, and he should be able to penetrate ice relatively easily. He's able to do just that, punching through the ice, shattering it, but Bakugo would follow up with an explosion for himself, hitting Izuku right in the chest, but Izuku would grab him and wrestle him to the ground. Izuku would slam his elbow into Bakugo's jaw, and this would hurt Bakugo extremely bad. We're talking about a lot of weight being pressed down on Bakugo at the moment, and Aizawa is smiling as it's happening. Not because he wants to see Bakugo get hurt necessarily, but it's more like, wow, this kid is really adaptive in terms of what he's doing. He's using the weight of the suit and also the restrictions even to his own advantage. Izuku will see on his screen that his capacity reaches 15%, and as he does, Todoroki would come in at a blaze of glory. He would get swept on his butt as Izuku would kick him right in the face. Izuku would try his best to wrap them up in capture tape, but he's not unable to, at least not quick enough. They would both stagger up, and Bakugo would hit him with multiple explosions as it continues to heat up. And of course, Todoroki continues to fight as well, shooting flames and ice at the same time. And of course, throughout this time, Todoroki would come to terms with his fire side, but he has nowhere near the training he would have had to this point. Izuku watches as he's getting bombarded by all of this, and eventually he actually sees that Bakugo is heating up, that he's storing more and more sweat within his gauntlets, and maybe he's looking for a giant explosion. They continue to do this, and as well, Izuku braces himself one more time, a huge explosion would just unleash out of nowhere. This explosion would cover Izuku entirely, and as it covers him, Izuku would come out and he would be massively singed, not only by the fire of Todoroki, but the fire of Bakugo, or the explosions of Bakugo. He would look at them, and Izuku's little number would increase to 20%, and quickly would be increasing to 25%. And Izuku would smirk as they're confused, as he would retaliate with a massive blow to the stomach. It sends them both flying, and they're both gasping for air. Izuku seems to be that much faster, and it seems that their wild card, their trump card to defeat Izuku, did not work. Izuku would go running forward using his extreme speed, and his armor, yes, it's weighing him down, but no longer near as much as it was before. Izuku would arrive at them as he would quickly tie them both up, straight up on back to back on each other, and Izuku would raise them up, and it would be over. But here's the thing. Todoroki and Bakugo did exactly what they should have done. They worked together. Maybe they should have decided to try and escape. Maybe try to invoke an escape plan. But to be honest, Izuku is a fighter that can fight from all ranges. If you put it into perspective, if they tried to run, even if they tried to encapsulate him in ice and do this or that, they probably would have gotten caught. So the best choice of action was to fight. And if you're gonna fight, you might as well work together. And in doing so, they actually did technically pass, and Izuku would be applauded by Aizawa, saying that he did even better than he thought. He was expecting 40%, maybe 35%, but not 25%, not even 20%. Izuku kind of shrugs off the armor, saying that it's too damn hot in that thing, and Aizawa says that those restrictions will no longer be on his armor, so if he wants to use it, he definitely can. Izuku says that it's cool armor, like really cool armor, but they definitely should make it smaller, more minimal, because the heat alone kind of mess with him, and if they run into a villain that can heat him up the way they did, well, that would become an issue. But then Aizawa would bring up the fact that what if he just turned into the other guy, the fire chicken guy? As Izuku would roll his eyes, because did you just call him a fire chicken? You're definitely a weird dude. But that's beyond the point. Izuku would think to himself that that is true, that this armor was pretty good for the Lucario, but a smaller version would have been better. But if he did use his Blaziken form, or even make a Blaziken form, the fire and all of the heat wouldn't have mattered. He wouldn't have overheated because of the body of a Blaziken's adaptability to fire itself. I mean, at the end of the day, we can make jokes, but it is kind of like a fire chicken. So I mean, if a chicken's on fire and it's used to it, then what's a matter with a little bit extra fire on top of it? So Izuku does think back to what Aizawa said, and it was obvious that he was giving little hints to the idea that maybe Izuku should have been in his Blaziken form, but that's beyond the point. It really doesn't matter. With all the more or less tests done, with all the practical tests finished up, they are all done and ready to go, and Aizawa explains that everyone's going to the forest training camp, just those who didn't pass are going to be taking some extra classes. He says that he'll see them all tomorrow, and just to be ready for absolute hell. Izuku hears this, and the next day they would arrive on the bus and head off to the forest training camp. But quickly they would realize that their training is far different than any other training that anyone else could have, including Class 1B. Class 1B, they would drive right on by, but Izuku's class of Class 1A would stand on the mountain, stand from above as he looks at everyone, and they would be thrown off the mountain by the wild pussycats. As they land down there, Izuku more or less just races off as he destroys, well, monster after monster, and let's just say the restrictions that he felt with that armor are no longer felt at all. He just feels so good within it. He begins running, smashing, dashing, and using every move in his arsenal to it, and all he can think about is how he could evolve even further. How would he be able to even increase his capabilities to the maximum amount? But that's something he'll think about later on. It's not something he'll think about right now. Izuku would arrive at the forest training camp before anyone else would, and of course Aizawa would be impressed, but it wouldn't be too surprising. I mean, come on, that is what Izuku has proven he can do, and proven that he's been doing for I don't know how long of a time. But he tells him that he really should have stayed around to help his classmates out, because now his classmates are kind of left out to dry, or left out high and dry, and they might just lose. In which Izuku shrugs this off, saying that it doesn't really matter. Don't really worry about it. In which Aizawa would laugh it off a little bit, but just shake his head like, come on, man, you gotta help out your classmates just a little bit. But Izuku don't really care that much about that. They need the training anyways, and frankly, if Izuku just continues to help them throughout this entire time, it actually might end up being a detriment. In which that is something that Aizawa thought of as well. But hey, maybe he's right. Maybe he should let his class struggle just a little bit. With all that said, though, the class would eventually arrive. They would have dinner, and they would have some weird and annoying interactions. And after more time would pass, the next day would eclipse, and they would begin their training. Their training would be pretty basic. Everyone would do the same training they normally would in canon, but Izuku, on the other hand, would train with Tiger, but he would also train on his own. He would want to actually unveil his more of an arsenal, because at the end of the day, he has a fighting type that has parts steel, right? And he has a fire type that's part fighting, or obviously that's kind of the realm of it. And he believes that the more he expands, the better. So why not expand even further? And he tries to think of other things that he could use. And he begins to think that he could be maybe a Greninja. And yes, this would be kind of difficult because Greninja's a weird one in terms of it's not a fighting type. But he feels that his whole thing about, oh, they have to be a fighting or a normal type, maybe he doesn't have to be. Maybe he could kind of just sway different directions, and maybe he could actually utilize, well, straight up some of the power of different Pokemon without actually needing to be in a certain category. Now, maybe this is optimistic. Maybe this is far from basically reality, but I mean, let's be honest, he's kind of bending reality for a while now, so why not give it a shot? And he actually tries to envision himself in the form of Greninja, and he does struggle quite a bit. Yes, he does start as a Froakie, and then Frogadier would be the next step, but throughout this time, he wouldn't get the best kind of training, because the struggle is pretty bad. I mean, struggling with a new Pokemon and not understanding it, he kind of even thinks to himself that he was just, imagine just like, let's just turn into a freaking Wailord at this point. Like, he knows he won't be able to do anything, but imagine just knocking people out like that. And Izuku would kind of laugh to himself about it, and he would think, what if he can? I mean, Wailords are kind of big. I mean, the stigma of being lazy as well. Maybe he could do that. Maybe he can turn into a giant whale. He thinks about it for a while, but then he kind of stays away from that. He thinks that maybe that's not the best idea in the world, so he'll hold off on that one. But hey, I mean, it might be a good idea. You never know. Izuku would continue training with everyone there, but that training, let's just say, would eventually kind of come to a halt. And as the forest would grow quiet, and as everything seemed to be okay, and everyone's eating, having a good time, growing, enjoying the company and enjoying themselves, well, villains would attack. The forest training camp is no longer a peaceful place for the heroes to grow and get stronger. No, it's a very, very hostile environment. Dabi, Toga, many others are here. And when Izuku's out to see what's going on with Koda, to give him some food, a monster, a freak of a man would arrive. He would walk over to Izuku and say that they're both going to die here and now. But Izuku would look at him and he would realize what's happening in the forest, and he would tell Koda to back up, that he will handle him. Koda would ask him to stop, to please, like he's going to get hurt. And Izuku says that he's not the one that's going to get hurt. Trust and believe that. As he's saying that, his voice would grow deeper as he would tower, basically taller above Koda by quite a bit, as he turns into his Blaziken form. As he then eventually lifts up one of his legs, his aura would expand and fire would begin trailblazing all on his arms. And Izuku would tell the big man to take another step. And if he does, well, it's going to be the last one he takes. Of course, Muscular likes this. Oh yeah, let's have a fight. He comes swinging at Izuku, and Izuku uses one blaze kick across his jaw, putting him down and staggering him extremely bad. Izuku would follow up, as it seems like he continues to get faster. Every kick, every punch, every single time he attacks, he's getting faster and faster and faster, eventually landing crucial blows on Muscular, to the point that even when Muscular evolves and gets stronger, well, in his more muscly form, he would still get beat down senseless. His little muscles aren't anything to be compared to the fire chicken, and Izuku beats the living hell out of him. He puts him down, and then he basically kind of makeshift ties him up with anything he can, and honestly, he just creates anything he possibly can, using any Pokemon moves he can think of to also capture him entirely. He would grab Koda as he would power down so he doesn't burn Koda with his arms, and he would jump off and run at insane speeds, especially because of all of the speed boosts he's gotten from his passive ability. He would arrive back at Aizawa, and Aizawa would look at him, and he would look toward where he was. And Aizawa asks if he's fast enough to save everybody. And, well, Izuku responds with something different. He says he's fast enough to protect everybody. He takes off running as every villain there gets a boot to the face, clobbered, smashed, and obliterated. It seems like villain after villain is getting beat down. But there's a reason why they're here. The reason is Katsuki Bakugo. They're coming after him, and Izuku wants none of it. And eventually, the choice needed to be made. Izuku was in front of the villains. Portal opening up, and Izuku could see that they're about to leave with Bakugo. Bakugo would be out of the marble. He was stuck in the marble that he just missed not too long ago. Izuku not seeing what transpired quick enough. And as Bakugo's getting dragged away, Izuku would look toward the villains, and he would disappear. Everybody would be confused, but of course, well, Bakugo would still be dragged in, and all of the League of Villains, or most of them that aren't incapacitated or like captured entirely, are looking around. But guess who's in that place, that workshop, that hideout? Guess who's there with you? Izuku Midoriya. Izuku standing there in his Blaziken form, and it's as if it's a scary freaking movie. It is terrifying. He stands there in front of a one-armed Shigaraki, stands there in front of a Dabi, stands there in front of a Kurogiri that knows the capabilities of this kid. What are you? Shigaraki would look at him in complete and utter shock. And Izuku wouldn't even say a word. Would knock out Shigaraki, knock out Dabi, and knock out every single person there, and would blow the roof. Literally blow the roof. This is not figuratively. He would blow the roof off of the hideout. It would basically signal heroes to go there as ASAP, and he would make sure Bakugo is good, and Bakugo says he is. Bakugo shrugs this off, but at the same time, he can't help but respect Izuku for what he's done. At the same time, he's annoyed at the fact that Izuku even had to do this. But that's fine. Izuku would tell Bakugo to take off now, and Izuku begins to focus even more than he ever had before. And he begins to transform into something he's never transformed into at all. And he goes from a Meta-type to a Meta-Cham, instantly evolving entirely, and then even Mega evolving. And everyone, or even himself, he's confused at how he's able to do it. But Izuku has so much experience now with the development and the evolution process, and with Meta-type and Meta-Cham being part of his comfort evolutions, he's able to evolve into that. Being that he is part psychic, now being a part psychic type, he immediately would use moves that would allow him to control and use telekinesis on these villains, capturing them all and capturing them in a giant bubble-like thing. He would then float off with them through the sky, but as he's leaving the building, many heroes would finally be arriving, but many villains would be as well, because there is someone stalking from above. Izuku would place the bubble down near the villains or near the heroes, and he would look up. As he looks up, he sees a mask of a man that has been tormenting Japan and the entire world for a long, long time. All for One. All for One stares down at them, and Izuku would float up toward him, and All for One would remark that the kid is very, very talented. Very. A freak, in fact. But there is no universe that he's going to let this happen the way he believes it's going to happen. Izuku says that he begs to differ. He would kick All for One, sending him flying through multiple buildings as he would race after him, landing punch after punch after punch. And immediately the villains would be carted off, sent away as fast as possible, and Izuku would continue the fight with All for One, throwing him back toward a certain area. And as he throws him back, Izuku can see a flash, someone jumping forward, and it's All Might. All Might lands a crucial blow to All for One, hurting him extremely bad, and Izuku could smirk just a little bit. At the end of the day, he was feeling the pressure, feeling this tense aura in the air, especially with what was happening. But Izuku smiles, and he then thinks to himself that this is the end. He transforms into a whale lord as he comes barreling down on All for One, and for some reason, One for All actually makes him even bigger, taking actually another enhancement, not a mega enhancement, but a different one. It seems like he's making himself even larger, and as he makes himself even larger, the Whale Lord slides, the size of it slams on All for One, making him practically a pancake. Izuku would go back to a smaller form, going back to his Lucaria form, landing on the ground, and All for One's mask completely shattered, but he's still alive, just laying there completely out cold, unable to move. All for One just is basically lifeless, but still breathing to a certain extent. But All Might would look at Izuku and give him a fist bump, saying that this world, this whole place, this country, Japan itself, everything, it's all his now. That he is the protector. He is the one that's going to strike fear into every villain. He is the one that's going to make every single citizen make it feel as if there is no villains out there. He will be the symbol of peace. Izuku smirks and nods as he transforms back into his just regular form, as many police and many other people come through, pick up All for One, and take away not only All for One, but the entire League of Villains. The League of Villains have been defeated, and one giant cluster of just dangerous situations has now been ended. But there is much more, many more things, and much more danger over the horizon. What's going on with the one and only overhaul? What's going on with, well, the rest of Class 1A's journey? Well, you're going to have to find out in the next part of What If Deku Had a Pokemon Quirk. And if you enjoyed, show some love, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. And I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.